fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
iRating, you wanted the best, you got him 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the world of outlaw.
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the final round of Just Send It for Season 1, at least, if you want to call it a proper season, that is, because, of course, there's no official championship, and nothing at stake except for bragging rights and maybe even that coveted award for the biggest send. But that is why this has quickly become one of the most popular series in the AusNZ community, and it's the pros up against the sim racers, and it's live on SimSpeed TV and the Just Send It Facebook page. My name is Ryan Jones, and alongside me, delighted to be joined by Lachlan Mansell, and tonight we are racing the Global Mazda MX-5 around the Interlagos circuit. And Lockie, at first glance, it doesn't seem like the most glorified combination, but as we know, low-powered cars, and cars like these, they can often provide some of the best racing you'll see.
Good evening, Ryan. Good evening, everybody. Really looking forward to this one tonight. It's a circuit that's steeped in history as somewhere that's hosted a lot of classic Formula One races over the years, but tonight we've got all of our drivers competing in one of the least powerful vehicles that we've seen in Just Send It, but vehicles that tend to produce pretty entertaining racing, especially last time we saw the Mazda MX-5 in action at the Catalunya circuit in Barcelona. And here is the man on screen who will start from pole position, Cooper Webster. He's already had 2 race victories in the Just Send It series. In fact, he's the only double race winner in this series, and he punched out the fastest time in the qualifying session earlier on, getting down to a 1 minute 50.5 lap time, which was 3/10 quicker than what anybody else was able to achieve.
Certainly was, and the other man that we should be watching out for tonight with a very good looking livery there, Jay just said to us, it's the best livery he's ever seen. And this is Dean O'Brien, of course, the man who won the other MX-5 race that we had on this series earlier in the season at Barcelona. And Lockie, that's an interesting livery, isn't it?
Certainly going to make our jobs easier because it'll stand out on the track. One of the challenges that we always have in the commentary boxes with all of the different car and driver combinations, being able to differentiate between liveries, and that was a big task for us last week in the Ford GTs when just about half the field decided to run with the same livery. But good to see that we've got things mixed up a bit tonight with all of the drivers having their own different colour schemes, so hopefully that makes our task that little bit easier. But this is, as you mentioned off the top, week number 12 of Just Send It. It's the end of phase 1, if you like, for this particular series. And what a series it's been so far. We've had some big name drivers, including a couple of the top runners in the Virgin Australia Supercars Championship, Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen, getting to race against some of the best sim races from around the country, and the racing has been thoroughly entertaining. We've seen some big sends, we've seen some failed sends, we've seen plenty of on-track action and entertainment from circuits right around the world, and very much looking forward to concluding here at the Brazil track tonight.
Yeah, and some of the drivers that of notable mention from the real world that we've got out there tonight, of course, Cooper Webster is compete in real world as well. Nick Percat is a V8 Supercar driver there. On screen, you can see him. Dylan O'Keefe, who is now a main game supercar driver after making his debut on the Gold Coast, and I dare say in the future too. We'll see him maybe in a full-time seat, hopefully next year. In the future, he runs in Super 2 as well, full-time. Brock Feeney, Super 3 championship winner from this year, is in the series. And I do believe there's quite a few drivers that race a lot of different categories right around the country in here tonight.
Race Low on screen at the moment. He got the award for the best postman last week. He came from outside the top 50 on the grid to finish up inside the top 10 in the Ford GT. So watch out for Race Low. He'll be looking to make some big moves up through the field. He is one of the men behind the organisation of this series, along with Glenn Wood and Trent Harrison, and he's behind the wheel of the Hype Project Mazda MX-5 this evening. Here is the driver who is, even though we don't have a championship per se, Andrew Collins is the driver who is the unofficial championship leader. He's been the most consistent performer in this series of Just Send It. He hasn't won any races, but he has been on the podium 3 times. But not only that, he's been in the top 10 in 9 out of the 11 weeks that we've had so far. So seriously consistent performances from Andrew Collins, the Ashley Seaward Motorsport race engineer.
Oh, I see that in the back of the shot there. Someone's already found their lid in practice. And here we go. Jay's managed to find it. We'll see how he's managed to end up on his side. Oh, Jack Hodder. He's gone for a wild ride, courtesy of Techstar McCoy, who also went for a equally wild ride. I think he got teleported out of the racetrack there.
These guys will be glad that it's only practice and that they can get in and get their cars fixed up. Oh, and get back out of the race. Oh, so that's what happened. Jack Hodder has crashed coming out of the pits, and he's just been T-boned by Techstar McCoy. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Can we have... I know we give away awards for the biggest failed send in Just Send It. Is it possible to give out the award in practice, or do we have to wait for the race to start? Because surely that deserves some sort of award.
That's incredible. Ruben Goodall has... How has he managed that? That right
or is
rear
it two
tyre.
It actually looks like both his tyres are flat there.
Flat.
And I do love the sponsor on that car as well, Ben & Jerry's. Very cool sponsor.
Very cool sponsor indeed. How's he managed to pick up this damage to his car? Coming around turn 2, there's a couple cars spinning and getting out of the way for him, nice and easy. I wonder if he's found the wall off turn 3 somewhere, because he's just decided to head down a pit lane. It's not often you see a car lose both its rear tyres like that, or maybe it's just broken the suspension. Because an interesting damage one. Oh, that's how it happened. Absolutely rear-ended by the car behind him. And
that'll do it.
That does it. Let's go through the grid for today's race, because they are gridding up now. We're going to have a rolling start today. Cooper Webster on pole from Dean O'Brien, Blake Purdy, Jackson Harlow behind there. Matt Morris running out that top 5 with Job Stewart, Michael Hammond, Dylan Shepherd. And we'll roll through the grid, and Lockie can point out any other notable names up and down this field.
So Andrew Collins, as I touched on, starting 9th. Good performance from Terry Nightingale, who's had some real-life success in Mazda MX-5s in the Wakefield and Winton 300 endurance races. He'll go from 11th position. Nick Percat, the first of the main game supercar drivers, in 14th. Nick Carroll, who's been racing in the Kumho Super 3 series this year, he will start out of grid position 16. Over the page we go. Dylan O'Keefe there out of 19th position. Also on this page of the grid, we've got Techstar McCoy, who's been racing in real life in the Victorian XL series as well. He'll go from grid position 22. Next page, we find Jay Hansen, the Australian Formula Ford Championship competitor, out of 25th position. Good to see Steve Owen back, although he's had a few incident-marred runs in recent times. He'll start in 30th spot.
We'll let that rest of the grid scroll through on your screen. Let's thank the sponsors, because without them we would not have this amazing series. Of course, the Hype Project, Wolfchester, Vantage Freight, Simworks, JAC Technologies, GB Galvanizing as well, all doing their bit to support this series and make sure that we get this every single week. And what we see is fantastic racing, some intriguing racing, some big sends, some inevitably big failed sends as well. And with a rolling start, I'm sure we're going to see these guys fan out 3, 4, heck, maybe even 5 wide down towards turn 1, further back in the pack. But another interesting characteristic of this track is when you come out of turn 13 here, you've got 2 more corners, turns 14, turns number 15 as well, but they're both flat out. So you've got a very long piece of road where you're going flat out, and in cars with such low power as these, that being able to keep the front end of the car out of the air in front of you, and you'll be sucked up with the car behind you in that slipstream, that's going to be extremely powerful. And I think turn 1 is going to be a huge overtaking opportunity for these guys today.
It's going to be an interesting first couple of corners, because you've got the left-hander at turn 1, immediately followed by a right-hander at turn number 2, the famous centre S's. Just before we get underway as well, a few big names to watch out for, starting for a bit further back. The Australian Formula Ford champion, Angelo Mazuris for 2019, and also Cody Birch, both starting outside the top 40 on the grid. So they'll be drivers to watch out for potential best postman awards as we get the green flag and we get underway.
That was a good start for the front half of the field, at least. Very clean, no incidents through the first couple of corners, and that is a remarkably clean start. No one has gone off track through turns 1 and 2, and for that matter turns 3 as well. So fantastic job from these drivers. Cooper Webster now would lead them down towards turn 1, and behind him he'll have Dean O'Brien, and behind them, going for a look up the inside, that was Jackson Suslin Harlow coming under pressure from Job Stewart there, who has the inside for 5, but I dare say we're going to see Harlow get back up the inside for turn 6 here. This double right-hander heading slightly uphill, and Dylan Shepherd wants a piece of this as well. So does Matt Morris behind them. A big train of cars, and out front to change for the lead, because through goes Dean O'Brien, takes a spot away convincingly from Cooper Webster as Blake Purdy watches that battle.
One of the things to watch will be slipstreaming. These cars only produce modest horsepower, so getting a tow from the car in front will be the best way to set up overtaking opportunities. But with all of the direction changes around this Brazilian circuit, there will be overtaking manoeuvres aplenty, and we're already starting to see that play out this evening.
Cooper Webster, he set himself up for a run onto this main straight, broke a little bit earlier to get on that power earlier as well, and has used that to slingshot before they even reach turn 14 up here to go by Dean O'Brien. And look at the run that Blake Purdy's got too. He's going to have to push Cooper Webster, and he's going to give him a big push here down the main straight. Webster's going to cover that inside, and Purdy's going to want to find a way back by Dean O'Brien's finding a bit of a draft. Harlow's going to make it 3 wide down into turn number 1. Can he get 3 for the price of 1? At the end of the main straight, Jackson Harlow, what a send. He's just picked up 3 spots.
We all held our breath collectively there, because they were just about 4 wide into turns 1 and 2, but somehow they all managed to get out the other side.
Oh no!
We may have avoided the drama on lap number 1, but unfortunately the same can't be said for lap 2. There's the pile-up with at least a dozen cars involved.
I'd say a bit more than a dozen cars involved in that one. They're still crashing through turn number 3. Let's have a look at the Motor Simulation replay and see how this one unfolds. You can see the absolute mess of cars, 2, 3 wide, all the way down the field, heading into turn number 1. Where has the crash originated from? We're watching here from the... Oh, it's happened even before we get to them, and you can tell when you have 30 cars trying to find your way through an incident, it doesn't work, and a chain reaction and a poor re-entry has caused a very large crash, to understate that one.
And some big names that have been caught up in that one. It looks like Angelo Mazuris, Nick Percat's been involved as well. Terry Nightingale's been shuffled back a lot of positions, so unfortunately some big name drivers falling victim to the carnage there at the beginning of lap number 2.
Jackson Harlow had a good run through the turn 12, turn 13 complex, pulled out 4 or 5 car lengths, but I don't think that's going to help him. It might give Blake Purdy and Cooper Webster the mother of all runs, and it will, with Webster pushing Purdy. Harlow's trying to shake that draft, but there's really not much you can do when the 2 cars behind him link up like that. Dean O'Brien's got a great run as well behind them, but he won't quite get close enough. Can they go round the outside at turn 1, 2 cars against 1? It will work as Purdy dives down in front of Harlow, takes the line away from him, and Webster's going to try and follow through. Inside for turn 2, great move from those two. So Harlow gets shuffled backwards. He uses a bit of the grass there on the inside of turn 3, as behind him, so too did Job Stewart, who's side by side with Hammond. This car coming out of the pit lane right in the midst of this battle too. That is Simon Black, I do believe, that he'll get out of the way, so good job for Black there, as this big pack of the leading pack of cars will now make their way in to the winding middle sector of the track. That's an incident for Jonathan Becker further back, Lockie.
That's at turns 1 and 2 by the looks of things as well. So, again, he was involved in a battle pack. There was actually contact on the way into the corner. And wow, he's just slammed into the inside concrete wall.
No!
And he's been also collected head-on by another car, which has gone rolling into the pit lane as well. So that's a massive shunt. That's Brian Borg. That was the car that collected Bykoff, who was parked in the middle of the track. Here's what it looks like on board his car.
Corkscrew up and over the pit wall. What a crash for Brian Borg.
So, getting back to the battle for the leaders, this has got all of the makings of being one of those races where you do not want to be leading coming out of the last corner on the last lap. The reason for that is because you will get slipstreamed on the run to the start-finish line. We've already seen in the first couple of laps that the driver who's led out of the final corner has not been in front when they've got to the start-finish line. So I think racecraft and having the right position at the right time is going to be instrumental in determining who ends up winning this race.
It will be 8 cars in this lead draft, covered by less than 2 seconds. I would say Webster pushing Purdy down this main straight, looks to the inside, so he should take P number 1 away. Dean O'Brien had a great run as well. And the top 9 cars, the exact gap is top 8 cars, 1.4 seconds, covering over half a dozen cars, which is sensational stuff after 4 laps. It's a little bit further back, contact, and around Andrew Collins. No, he saves it. Great save there for Collins. That was contact, I believe, with Job Stewart. Look at this out front. They're almost 3 wide. Webster was getting pushed down the straight, almost got sent sideways. Purdy's going to lose out 2 spots here. Matt Morris, the beneficiary, goes up into P3, looking to take P2 away from O'Brien as well, but I think O'Brien's going to try to cover him off, and should cover him off, and will, into turn number 6.
This has been fantastic racing so far. Initially, it looks like those top 3 or 4 cars were going to be able to get a break over the rest of the field. But because they've started dicing with one another, it's now brought a whole lot of other cars into play, and we've now got legitimately a 10-car freight train of MX-5s that are battling for the lead of this race.
Matt Morris almost, and all that is contact behind them. That's Hammond that gets rotated. Nice little 360 flick spin, gets going back the right way, doesn't make contact with anyone else, but Matt Morris, I was going to say, almost got sent straight into the back of Dean O'Brien through turn number 7, and now is under pressure from Jackson Harlow, who was leading this race at one point, is back in 5th place now. Matt Morris will help him by Blake Purdy on this main straight. Nothing that Purdy can do in defence to this. I wonder if by the time we get to the finish, we'll have 2x2 cars pushing each other to line NASCAR style. That'd be quite a sight to see, wouldn't it?
Now, in terms of the Best Postman Award, early days yet, but Will Longmore started this race 54th on the grid. He is up to position number 12 already. So Will Longmore, the massive beneficiary from the opening few laps of this race.
Huge beneficiary, and with that safety car to come at some point as well, he'll close right up and he can join this big battle for the lead, as Ruben Goodall had a crash a la Jonathan Bekoff into turn number 1. Similar story, hitting that inside wall, the pit wall. He's got the 12 right up in behind him to his outside, and the 12 just misjudged it. I think trying to cut down to the inside to get that line through the corner, the favoured line, and has unfortunately swiped across the rear bumper and turned him around. Further back, Stephen Owens, all the way back in 46th place. Haven't seen him in Just Send It the past couple of weeks. Back tonight, which is good to see. There's a couple cars breaking away now. O'Brien and Webster, about 4 or so car lengths, but I think as long as Harlow remains unchallenged, that draft will allow him to close back up and pull all those cars with him by the time they reach turn 1 again.
So you mentioned that we will be seeing a safety car at some point. That's one of the rules of the Just Send It series, is that we do have a competition caution that comes out at some randomly determined time during the race. What we also have is pit stops, so they will be limited in terms of the fuel that they're allowed to have on board. That means that everybody will have to come in to the pits for a splash of fuel at some stage during the race. And what we've seen in previous weeks is that the optimum strategy is to make sure that you pit before the safety car comes out. Why? Because you are not allowed to pit on the first lap when the safety car is deployed and when the field gets bunched up. If you haven't taken your pit stop, that means that you end up getting shuffled towards the back of the train.
Yeah,
on board with Andrew Collins at the moment, so he's in behind Job Stewart. Job Stewart's Mazda MX-5 sporting a few battle scars to the rear end and might be sporting a few more as they run down into turn number 1. Andrew Collins making nose-to-tail contact with the back of Job Stewart's car. Bit of Morse code on the rear bumper of Stewart's MX-5 just to try and get him unsettled, but if anything, that actually works to Job Stewart's advantage, and he's going to be putting the pressure on Matt Morris. Those two cars will go door-to-door into turn 4, and Stewart might actually gain a spot here. Indeed he does.
He runs a bit wider though coming through turn 4, and that has allowed Morris back up to his rear bumper, and now he'll do the same thing that Stewart did to him, give him a push, but won't find a way through at turn number 5, so he'll be happy about that one. There are a few car links off Harlow and Blake Purdy. We got 3 2-car little groups here, all separate about 4 or so car lengths, and they've settled down just a little bit for now. I think Harlow's just got a bit of a slowdown behind this lead battle and has had to tuck in behind Dean O'Brien. That's allowed Job Stewart, Matt Morris to close up to them. So we've got 4 cars now battling for the final podium spot, about half a second off the lead of the race.
And so then it's the next group of cars. You've got Blake Purdy, Jackson Souza and Harlow. Wow, Andrew Collins. Just as well we don't have penalties for exceeding track limits tonight, because he was well wide of the what you would describe as the ideal racing line there coming into the final sequence of corners on this circuit. Looking to take the wider approach line and try and get better drive out of the corner for the run onto the straight. But the problem there for Andrew Collins, he's just fallen slightly back from the cars in front, which means that he might not have quite as much of an advantage from the slipstream. Speaking of slipstreaming, Susan Harlow uses it to perfection. He'll move back up into position 3, getting down the inside of Blake Purdy. The other thing that's about to become a factor here, Ryan, is lapped traffic. You can see that the leaders are about to start rounding up some of those cars that might have been caught up in incidents early in the race or that have done early pit stops, and they're going to have to work their way through, and that has the potential to mix things up as well.
Yeah, George Wen, Josh Perween, and the corkscrew man, Brian Borg, all up in front of these guys as Purdy now tries out that adventurous line, using up all of the track limits at the back of this little train. Nothing he can lose from doing that. No chance of a car getting up your inside. Of course, if you're, say, Matt Morris, who's got a car right up behind him, can't afford to take that line, because Purdy will step right up into that inside line and you'll lose a spot from trying it.
So not a whole lot of the key runners have done pit stops yet. The highest placed car that has done a pit stop is Dylan Shepherd. He sits in 19th position at the moment. Christina Nazarick has done a stop. So too has Dylan O'Keefe. But I'm pretty sure that O'Keefe had to come in for an unscheduled pit stop after being caught up in some of the drama that we saw a bit earlier on in the race.
Yeah, certainly. Look at this for 11th place, Textar McCoy. What a name. That just rolls off the tongue beautifully. And Daniel Aish behind him too. This is looking like an aggressive little pack, and it is an aggressive pack. Rotated there through turn number 11. Daniel Aish, get off the racing line. Just does it in time. Gets that car pointed back the right way. And now he will have to wait for that mandatory caution to bunch him back up to those guys. Down into turn 1, George Wen, all the way down to the inside, getting out of the way. And I think Purdy broke a bit later than Jackson Harlow wanted him to, and pretty much drove the car in front of him into the corner at a lot higher speed than he wanted to be heading in there. Almost lost control, managed to gather it up. Good job though. Matt Morris has got a fantastic run down the inside of Job Stewart for turn 4. This should be a move well done, and it is. Stewart opting to jump on the brakes and let him go through for now. And Morris taking a very wide line, using up all the track he can, trying to use as little steering input as possible.
With these cars, because of the modest amount of horsepower that they produce, it's all about minimising mistakes and making sure that you don't lose momentum with sideways moments on the exit of corners. If you make even the slightest mistake or step off the racing line or get a bit sideways, you can find yourself losing multiple positions in the blink of an eye. So it's all about being really smooth and precise with these cars, and that's why we're seeing so many passing manoeuvres, because it only takes the tiniest little error and you can find yourself being shuffled back several spots in a heartbeat.
Matt Morris just got shuffled off the track and into the grass on the exit of that corner by Job Stewart. Now he's caught 3 wide, and Harlow's going to wipe his nose across the rear bumper of that JP Simshed car. And now they're 3 wide again. Contact. Morris will spin. He'll keep it off the wall. He'll go back across the track, but he'll lose a bunch of time. And that was a very bit awkward there between Purdy and Harlow. But look who's benefited from this. Andrew Collins is trying to find his way up inside the top 5.
We always say it, don't we, about Andrew Collins. He's always there or thereabouts. Every week in Just Send It, he always, without fail, manages to find a way of ending up somewhere inside the lead group. And once again, that's the case this evening.
Certainly is. I'm very excited to see how some of the drivers that have come through this field early on will go up at the front for the restart, because they're going to have a prime opportunity to get themselves into or very close to the lead of the race. Andrew Collins, one of those. Will Longmore, another one. And Longmore is still circulating back in... Where is he? He's back in... He's up in 10th place now, so he's found 44 spots now. So up a couple more for Longmore, and he'll be happy with this progress as side by side, 2 by 2, Harlow and Stewart, Collins and Purdy, they sort themselves out for the double right-hander.
I think now's the time to start thinking about doing a pit stop. The problem is that these guys, I think, having a bit too much fun to want to get out of the battle that they're in, because they're loving this wheel-to-wheel action, and it's best in Just Send It this evening. Let's check out another replay of what is perhaps the best send that we've seen so far. So this is Andrew Collins and Blake Purdy. Blake Purdy down the inside, just gets it stopped. And I reckon that that is definitely a nomination for the best send that we've seen so far this evening.
That and the 3-for-1 from Jackson Susan Harlow earlier on in the race. I think they're the 2 nominees I've got so far. Further back, and any of these guys fight their way onto that nomination list. Christian Lindblom is in 15th place, leading in the middle of a little 3-car pack of Glenn Serra and Brian McDonald. The lead for Cooper Webster out front is out to 2.2 seconds. So he's done a fantastic job of opening up that gap, getting out of slipstream range of Dean O'Brien, who in turn is out of range of Harlow. And we'll have to wait until that safety car to see this close back up again. The battle is really for that 3rd place spot. The best of the rest behind those 2. And I would argue probably the prime position to start that final lap in, because if you're in 3rd, you've got 1st and 2nd hooked up in front of you. You can slingshot both of them before that start-finish line.
Matt Morris has come into the pits, incidentally, out of that top 5 position, so he's decided to get out of the battle, get his pit stop out of the way, and he's taking tyres as well. So that could prove to be a smart move, depending on when the competition caution comes out. But how can you take your eyes away from this battle? Jackson Suzlin, Harlow, Job Stewart, Blake Purdy and Andrew Collins still absolutely nose to tail. The problem is that while they're battling the top 2, Cooper Webster and Dean O'Brien have pulled up the road. Cooper Webster with a 2.5 second advantage over Dean O'Brien, and then it's another 3.5 seconds back to the gaggle of Mazda MX-5s that are battling for position 3.
This position 3 battle is very interesting. A lot of very talented drivers in here. Jackson Harlow is someone that competes in real life as well. I believe it's Tag 125s he was competing in the Race of Stars event. came home in 3rd place in that, so kudos to him for that. It was a very talented field that attended that event, and now he's got a whole nother challenge in front of him today. He's going to try and hold off Joe Stewart and Blake Purdy until the caution flies. But I think about the pit strategy too, Lachlan.
So, just interesting to note that Matt Morris has come out in 20th position. He's actually 4 spots behind Dylan Shepherd. We've got another car in the wall. This time it's the number 320 car that somehow managed to end up in the fence. That's David Haynes on the driver's right-hand side of the circuit on the main straight. That's a weird incident there. What? I've got my producer in my ear trying to tell me to say the team name, but what is it? Huge ass, is it? Huge ass.
In the meantime, as a result of that incident, the caution has come out.
Well, you know what? Dylan Shepherd's in the box seat. Dylan Shepherd is in the box seat now because he is the highest placed driver who's taken a compulsory pit stop. Matt Morris will be the 2nd best of the cars to have taken the spot, but none of the top 15 cars in the race have pitted. So this is going to massively jumble up the field.
This is going to make this an incredibly juicy and exciting conclusion to this one, because we're gonna be seeing Webster, Perwin, and O'Brien, Harlow, all those really fast guys who've been out front have to come through the field, because I'm counting about 8 or so cars that have made pit stops that will cycle themselves all the way back to the front.
So just having a look at lap times as well. So Dylan Shepherd's best lap time in this race, 1 minute 53.7. So he's got the strategy right because he's the best of the cars that has done a pit stop, but I'm not sure that he's going to have the speed to be able to maintain that position, because his best time is more than 2 seconds slower than what the main contenders have been achieving. So like you say, Ryan, it's going to be a really interesting conclusion to this race with some fast cars that have ended up on a suboptimal strategy, having to work their way back to the front of the field.
Just watching David Haynes, I think he might have just kept himself on the lead lap. He's going to come out right in... Nah, he's 1 lap down. But he came out right in front of Webster, so he's at least saved himself 1 extra lap by a whole 50 metres, I believe he saved himself there. And now the field will form up behind this safety car, the Porsche safety car, and they'll wait for that pit entry sign to open, and we'll see almost the whole field dive down into that pit lane. You can see the fuel saving going on there for Cooper Webster. He's in 6th gear, using as little revs as possible. He'll be off the throttle. Don't believe you can actually clutch coast in these cars, can you? Yes, you can. I had it mixed up. Ignore me there. But yeah, he'll be fuel saving, coasting on the clutch, and he'll want to take as little fuel as he possibly can. He won't want to get jumped by anyone behind him in this pit stop phase, and that will ring true for everyone all the way up and down this field. Longmore is up 45 spots now. He's up into 9th place. Unfortunately, isn't one of the drivers that has pitted. If he had been, that would have been the master stroke of the year right there.
Speaking about driving technique and clutch coasting as well, one of the things that a lot of the drivers of these MX-5s have discovered is that you can actually gain a lot of time by turning off the auto blip feature in iRacing and actually heeling and towing as if you were driving a manual road car. And several of the drivers, including, I know for a fact, Dylan O'Keefe and Andrew Collins, were doing a lot of practice before tonight's event, just practicing their heel and toe technique to try and gain an advantage that way.
Thought he said he didn't want you to say that on the broadcast, Lockie.
Bad luck, I've said it now.
Trade secrets.
It's public knowledge now.
No, I think that is a tactic used by the majority of the top racers in the sim racing community. I think that's a pretty well-known fact, that one, as we see the laps cars getting a wave around now to get their lap back. And now let's watch the stampede. That won't happen. Cooper Webster stays out. Stewart! No, he's gone into the wall. He faked to come down into pit road, decided not to. Turned back out onto the racetrack and turned himself across the front end of Blake Purdy and made contact with the outside main straight wall. Take a look at this.
You are kidding me, aren't you? That has to be a nomination for the biggest failed sin. We already had a nomination from the practice or the warm-up session earlier on. But seriously.
I shouldn't laugh, but Job Stewart, you've done yourself better there, mate.
So now he's got damage. He's lost a whole lot of positions, and
Well,
he hasn't
he'll get his
made
spot
a pit
back.
stop either.
He'll get his spot back at least, but he's got some damage to contend with now on that machine, and I think we might see him come down to pit lane to get that repaired, get a new car. He's going again, and he's going to reverse straight back out in front of that bright blue car there. How has he managed it this time? I didn't see this one. I just looked up and saw him in the wall. He's got steering damage to that car, and he tried to do a bit of tyre warming. And has just put himself in the wall. So this has been... Look at the steering on that car, Lachlan. That is as much left-hand down as you will ever see, and this is the lap from hell for Job Stewart. He's going at about 100 kilometers an hour.
So I thought you weren't allowed to overtake while the safety car was out, or is his argument going to be just resuming the position that he was in when the safety car was called?
Yep, so the iRacing... The damage on that car is doing some funny things to the physics of that MX-5, and yes, the iRacing automatic caution system does allow him to regain his position in line. The lights are out in safety car, by the way, and they'll go racing once again, with most of the field having not made a pit stop. Look at the super slow-mo for Job Stewart coming in to turn number 6. As he turned it in, that car did about everything except roll itself over. But we'll get there eventually.
Interesting that none of the front runners chose to pit under the safety car. So
Look at
I
that.
wonder if they're gambling on being able to make it to the end of this race without a pit stop.
Yeah, I think
So
that
we
is probably
saw-
what they are trying to do. There isn't a
Yes.
mandatory pit stop either, though, so they don't have to pit.
It's still a risky strategy, though. So you're going to have some drivers out the front who are going to be doing some serious fuel saving. You've got others, the likes of Dylan Shepherd, who have done a pit stop, who know that they can just go as hard as they possibly can right to the end. So now we've got the added extra element of these drivers trying to maintain track position while also saving fuel. Unsurprisingly, Job Stewart is going to have to
3
come
wide
into the
already.
pits and take himself out of the lead battle. But here we go, back underway. 13 minutes and 20 seconds remaining on the clock for week 12 of Just Send It. 3 wide, go out race leaders down into turn 1. Jackson Suzlin Harlow trying the big outside move, but loses the rear, spins
Oh,
in
he's
front of the
got collected.
field. Everybody else going left and right, taking evasive action, but Jackson Suzlin Harlow has been collected up the front, and he's going to fall way back down the order.
A few more cars spun through turn 3 as well. That was a big, unfortunate incident for Harlow. I thought for a second he might escape without being collected, but he definitely got collected. And further back, more contact into turn 4. Chain reaction, a couple cars go around. Will Longmore gets absolutely rear-ended like no tomorrow there by, I believe that was Steve Owen, who's causing carnage. He's rolling cars over, and big crash on the straight out of turn 5. And a few cars collected once again. David Haynes goes for another wild ride, and Steve Owen just caused an absolute mess in the midfield there.
So one of the drivers who got caught up in that somewhere in that whole process was Andrew Collins, because he was, don't forget, up inside the top 5 positions, but he's been shuffled well down the order, and there's been some big beneficiaries once again. So Dylan Shepherd, the best of the drivers who have done a pit stop, has come up to position 5. All of a sudden, knowing that he can run full rich fuel right to the end, he is a genuine contender to win this race. And Dylan O'Keefe as well, who was nowhere a couple of laps ago. He's made up multiple positions on the first lap since this restart. He's now up to 7th position.
man that started last in this race, Lindbom, is up into 6th place. How on earth has he done that? He's going to get most posty if he can stay there. What's that? 52 spots that Christian Lindbom has gained in just 30 minutes of racing. That's an incredible gain. He could still win this race if those top 2 start fighting, but Webster's got just about enough of a gap that he's able to shake a bit of that draft from Dean O'Brien. Blake Purdy's in no man's land there in 3rd, about a second or so back, and it's another second back to Hansen and Dylan Shepherd, who are in 4th and 5th. Then you've got Lindbom in behind them, and then a 3-car battle between O'Keefe, Morris, and Chris Barnes. Side by side between Shepherd and Hansen, though, they sort themselves out.
So another spot gain then for Dylan Shepherd. He's up to position 4, and he is flying at the moment in the number 43 car. So we expected that Dylan Shepherd was going to be a driver on the charge. Another driver who will be charging forward very rapidly will be Matt Morris, because he's another driver who came in for a pit stop and also took on fresh tyres, but he makes contact with Dylan O'Keefe, and he gets spun around. That will spread the field out as cars have to swerve left and right to avoid making contact, but he was trying to go around the outside of Dylan O'Keefe. There was Matt Morris. O'Keefe was having none of it. They were fighting door to door. They were fighting wheel to wheel, and just nose to tail contact between the two MX-5s, and it's Morris who goes spinning off the circuit.
That's unfortunate there for Matt Morris. Won't be too happy about that one. How was, who was it? Chris Barnes going around the outside of O'Keefe on the grass, and now side by side with O'Keefe for about 7th or 8th place down this main straight. O'Keefe will clear him down towards turn 1. This is just behind this battle. We're on board with Christian Lindbom, who's looking at the back of Shepherd. You can see in the back of shot there, the side-by-side action. Barnes has got back to the inside, and late on the brakes, about clears him behind them. James McKay goes through on Techstar McCoy, and O'Keefe crossover. Great racecraft, as you would expect from the supercar driver. Back to the outside. They'll go side by side as Brad Newman and Luke Lucas come out of pit lane, bump draft style, tandem style, and they got caught 3 wide. They are caught 3 wide, and O'Keefe's going to get turned around by Chris Barnes, and unfortunately Luke Lucas, probably without making that's a very awkward spot. Without making contact, probably the cause of that one, just squeezed those 2 lead lap cars into each other. What do you think about this one, Lachlan? We'll look at the replay.
You could see that coming though, couldn't you? Because they were 4 wide on the approach into turn 4. Those couple of slower cars that had just come out of the pits. Dylan O'Keefe was a fair way in front, but he was also the car that was making the overtaking manoeuvre. So you would have to say that the onus would have been on O'Keefe there to get the job done safely, and he wasn't quite far enough ahead of the car that he was battling against there to have made the move through cleanly, and they both ended up firing off the racetrack. Here is Dylan Shepherd, who's up into position number 4. His lap time's still not quite as quick as the race leaders though, and he is 6 seconds off the lead of the motor race, but we know with certainty that he's got the fuel to get to the end. All of the cars ahead of him, none of them have done pit stops. They're all going to be marginal.
I thought Webster was going to come down into pit lane then. He stayed to the very left in the pit lane right up until the very last second. He sold me a dummy, that's for sure. Did a better job of it than Job Stewart did under caution. I'll give him that, though.
So time to bring out a stat for you. Nobody's managed to win a race in Just Send It before without making a pit stop. So if Cooper Webster can go all the way tonight, he would actually make a bit of history in terms of managing to make it to the end of the race in first place without taking a pit stop. So I think very, very tense times in the final few minutes of this race to see whether or not Cooper Webster's got enough fuel on board, if he's been able to save enough fuel under that safety car to make it home without a splash.
Here's an incident further back in the field. This is Jackson Harlow, who we saw at the front fighting and leading this race at one point. It went a bit wrong for him, and he's pulled off and decided that he's had enough of this one. And that car looked very much second or 8, so probably find that car was not handling all too well too, and you might not be able to blame him for that one. As Jay Hansen, he's not letting Dylan Shepherd get away from him at all. He'll close back up thanks to the slipstream on this main straight too. So Shepard's got company here for 4th place, and I think they're both catching Blake Purdy as well, who's up there in 3rd, being hounded by the lapped car of Job Stewart and Terry Nottingham Jr., the car right in front of Dylan Shepard here as well. So look at how much of the track they're using on the entry to turn 13, trying to get as much momentum as possible onto this long, curving main straight.
So when we say it's a straight, it's not actually all that straight because there's 2 corners that lead into it, turns 14 and 15, and it's only really the last part of it that's actually straight, but still great slipstreaming and great opportunities for overtaking. Such a shame for Jackson Souza and Harlow because he almost made what would have been a brilliant manoeuvre at turn number 1 at the restart, but didn't quite get the MX-5 turned in on the dirty side of the racetrack and went spinning off the circuit, and his night rapidly went downhill from there. More battles as they head into turn number 1. Michael Hammond in the 007 Laser Plumbing and Electrical sponsored car, and we've got contact into the fence, guys. I think that's one of the lapped cars. Hayden Felici there. Christina Nazarick, who had been having a pretty good evening up to this point, has been involved as well.
It's just an awkward coming together on the exit of turn 2, the entry to turn 3 there. That change of direction caught them out. And around they both went to opposite sides of the racetrack, and they'll filter back in towards where this battle is for about 16th place. This is where Dylan O'Keefe has found himself falling back towards, and now he's back in 17th as a result of that spin earlier on, trying to get back by Alex Court, who has passed him already on this lap, and this could be the second change of position between them on this lap, and it will be. So O'Keefe retakes that spot away from Court. Brian Borg has... Wow! Brian Borg has found his way up into 16th place after that spectacular crash over the pit wall earlier on, so that caution's been really great for him, and he'll be stuffed with that. Chuffed. He'll be chuffed with that.
Getting into the business end of this motor race now. 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go, so only a handful of laps remaining. It is Cooper Webster who leads this race by 2.1 seconds over Dean O'Brien. Blake Purdy sitting in position 3. Dylan Shepard in 4th. 7.7 seconds off the lead. He's not had the pace to go with the front runners. So I'm going to come down to the fuel situation as we've talked about. So it's going to be a nervous, tense last few laps. Could we be set for a Bathurst 1000 2014 style finish where we have cars running out of fuel on the last lap?
Now that would be quite something, wouldn't it? I think the only issue we may see there is that you can pass everywhere on this track almost with this car. One of the biggest factors with that was Mostic could not find his way by. I think what we might see is Dylan Shepard come from a long way back to steal it at the end. The gap that he has to close up to make that happen is 7.7, so it's definitely a long shot. Certainly a possibility though. Although looking at the lap times of Cooper Webster, a 51.26 last time by, just a 10th off his fastest lap, the fastest lap of the race. So he's not fuel saving at all on that machine. If he is, he's doing a stellar job of it. I think Webster, he might be safe on fuel. That caution period might have been enough for these guys to get there. Side by side, further back, the fringes of the top 20, and just outside it, Glen Sarah 20th and Nazarick back in 21st. That's Dylan O'Keefe. It is Dylan O'Keefe.
How's he ended up out there? Gee, this will be interesting to watch this replay because he's gone a long way out into the boondocks there. So he slightly misjudged his turn-in point. That's heading up into turn number 6 and 7, I believe. And that's how he's ended up way off out in that concrete extension runoff area that they have over there. As he made it all the way to the wall. Almost. He only just got the car stopped before making contact with the tie wall up there, but he had worked his way back up into the top 15 after the spin a few laps ago, but he's now fallen back to 22nd position.
Yeah, it's fallen back, and Christian Lindbom is all over the back of Matt Morris for 6th place. Behind them as well, a couple more cars watching on, hoping to get involved. Terry Nightingale Jr. is a lap down, so won't do much, but James Mackay will be hoping to use some of the draft off Nightingale to close up and maybe get involved in this battle for 6 on the closing stages of this race. Just a minute and a half left to go on this one. It should be a white flag when we cross the line.
Matt Morris has done a good job of recovering back up into the top 6 because, remember, he got turned around by Dylan O'Keefe just after the safety car restart when he was looking to be charging his way up through the field on fresh tyres. But his lap times have been very good. 1 minute 51.3. He's pretty much matching the pace of what the leaders are doing, Matt Morris. So he's got serious pace on board the number 66 MX-5.
He does. We just missed those guys. Just went past a car on his roof too, in the same spot Dylan O'Keefe went off the track. That was a interesting position as this battle for third closes up. I think we've got a replay up on the screen of it. We do. This is a little bit further back where I was thinking we'd be looking, but that is an incident at turn 2. Luke Brown just got edged straight into the tyre bundle by that JP Simshed car. I think that was Matt Morris. And we have a Dylan Shepherd right up on the back of Blake Purdy for third place. Job Stewart is the odd one out. He's at 38th and a lap down, but it allows down to the inside for Dylan Shepherd, and Stewart pushing Purdy as long as he could, but Shepherd just so much more speed, and Job Stewart making an absolute nuisance of himself. Gave a hit to the right rear quarter panel of Shepherd's car, gave a hit to the front left of Blake Purdy's car, and as we get the confirmation of this being the final lap, these two are going to go right down to the wire. Purdy's got a bit of a run on him now. He might be close enough for a look into turn 4. Shepherd's going to cover it off though, and Purdy's going to have to think about going the long way around. Tries the outside. Will he look for the crossover? He does, and he gets a good run. Can't quite the run to the inside for turn number 6 and 7. Gets the inside for turn 5 though. They almost make contact. They do make contact in a straight line, door to door, banging and rubbing paint. Trading paint on the run down to turn 6. Shepherd holds him off for now, but Purdy wants this spot back. And there's now another car involved on this, Jonathan Beckoff, and he's fighting Job Stewart for position just in behind them too. Let's look at this. Lachlan Mansell further back.
So Matt Morris had worked his way up to 6th, as we mentioned, but he's had contact with Jay Hansen. He was trying to go round the outside of the pit box car.
Oh,
didn't get the move done and go spinning off the circuit.
Blake Purdy just went spinning off the circuit, courtesy of Dylan Shepherd on the exit of turn number 11. That was a move that didn't quite work out, and that battle for third has been resolved. But out front, it's looked set for a number of laps now. Cooper Webster has been the only man able to challenge at the front and stay there. And as a result, Webster's going to win this race by a comfortable margin. And he wins the final wet race of the first season of Just Send It. Dean O'Brien takes second place in that Little Mermaid car. Dylan Shepherd in the end will come home in third. First of the cars to make a pit stop. Jay Hansen will in fact take fourth place. Mackay fifth. Lindbom sixth. Where did Blake Purdy fall to? All the way back to seventh place.
So 3 wins then for Cooper Webster in the Just Send It series. So congratulations to him. That's fantastic. Back-to-back wins, of course, for Cooper Webster in the... He won in the truck at Belle Isle, and the week before that he won in the Mercedes GT3 at the Sebring circuit as well. So it's actually 3 wins in the space of 4 weeks for Cooper Webster.
It is. I'm just watching the absolute mess that always occurs at turn 1 after the conclusion of the race, and a couple cars on their lids. Let's go through the unofficial, but they're pretty much official results of Just Send It for week 12 at Interlagos. 4-second win in the end for Cooper Webster from Dean O'Brien. Dylan Shepherd was 10 seconds back after making that pit stop before the caution. Jay Hansen was home in 4th. Mackay running out the top 5 out of Lindbom, Purdy, and Jack Widders, who had a relatively unnoticed race to finish up in 8th place. He's flying under the radar a bit there, but good job for him.
Sometimes not a bad strategy in races that have got plenty of action, as the Just Send It races always do. Incidentally, Christian Lindbom, who started 58th on the grid and made it up to position 6, is by far and away the winner of the Best Postman Award for this evening.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that one. He definitely takes that one out. Might possibly be the most spots we've seen anyone gain all season long. We roll over the rest of the results flying through on the screen. What a race we've had to conclude the first phase or first season, whatever you want to call it, of Just Send It. Now we get to recharge our batteries for a couple of weeks and come back on the 26th of November for the next stage of the series. But for tonight's race, what do you reckon, Lockie? Who do you reckon probably took out of that best send, or the best failed send as well?
So I think we had a couple of nominations for the best send. I think Blake Purdy made a pretty impressive move at one stage during the race where he saw him firing it down the inside. Biggest failed send, a couple of different nominations, but I think in the end, Job Stewart, that failed pit entry, probably has to be the winner of that one just because of the absolute carnage that then ensued afterwards.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the third one. I would give my vote to Harlow's 3 for 1 in the first stage of that race at the entry to turn 1. I think that was a pretty good use of the draft, the slipstream, and braking supremacy. But that will about do us for today. It's been an absolute pleasure to call this one. So much excitement as always, and we can't wait for the series to get back up and running in a few weeks' time. We look forward to the next few broadcasts though for SimSpeed TV coming up on tomorrow night on the iRating Esports Network. The Epiroc Sprint Series Australia is back in action at Phillip Island, and on Thursday SimSpeed TV presenting the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, and many more races to come in the weeks to follow on the iRating Esports Network and from SimSpeed TV. Make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the iRating Esports Network, to SimSpeed TV, to the Just Send It Facebook page. Give them a like as well. Let us know what you thought. Thank you for tuning in. And from myself, Ryan Jones, from Lachlan Mansell alongside me, from Jay Kennedy in the director's booth tonight, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh
him.
my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?